Okay, everyone. I've been asked to do this a long time. Um, People, ever since they heard that I was going to play this game, that to give a review on it and to see what I thought of it. Okay, to be fair, this game was a pretty big movement for the Natsume franchise. Excuse me. And they did want to bring the series back to life because the last few games in the series pretty much bombed for the most part. I mean, fans of the original series still bought them and liked them a little bit, but it didn't have any of the magic from the original two games. So, excuse me. Jeez, this always happens when I'm trying to do one of these. Oh well. And this was supposed to be the return to form. But there are a few things that I'm going to touch on in this that you guys are not going to want to hear. Mostly how much I hate this game. Yes, you heard me. I hate this game. This game did not really honor the original Lufia 2. It butchered it, like in almost every way possible. The music wasn't bad. The music was remixed from the original too, and the music was pretty good, I guess. Although I think certain music was kind of at play sometimes, especially the boss music, which I'll get into later. Uh, the characters I'm going to be touch on in this part, and I'm going to deal with the Sinistrals and bosses in the next segment. Since I can't seem to fit that many pictures in one sitting. Yes, you're going to see picture proof of how this game was butchered. As a matter of fact, that's happening right now. This is what Maxim, the hero of Lufia 2, looked like in the concept art and the sprite for the original Lufia 2. Scroll this down a little bit. He looked pretty cool. Your standard JRPG anime hero. At least back in the SNES days. He was pretty awesome. Probably one of my favorites, actually. He was strong. He could use white magic a little bit. He had great defense. And he's the only character in the game that could use the dual blade, which was pretty much the ultimate weapon in the game. It channeled energy waves from a person's body and multiplied them, greatly increasing one's power. Only the Master Sinistral Douse and Maxim could ever use it, so that showed just how powerful Maxim was. And Maxim is supposedly the only person that could really strike down the super beings called Sinistrals. Unfortunately, let's look at what happened to him when they made the remake. Personally, out of all 6 that were changed, he was probably changed the least. But you can tell just by looking at him that it's not exactly what you'd expect when you look at the original Lufia 2. They gave him much more of a gangster type look. Not in a bad way, but you can definitely tell a change. He doesn't look near as awesome as he did before, and he just comes off as more cocky-ish. In and outside of the game. But, having experienced the full brunt of this game, Maxim himself doesn't really bother me anymore, and you're going to see why. Let's look at the next character in the game. Salon. Yes, I know, I'm not showing these in order, but there's nothing I can do about that. Okay. Salon actually joined about halfway through the game, and was Maxim's decision on who to marry. She comes off as being a little cocky early on, as being independent and all that, as a general of the Bound Kingdom. I think it was the Bound Kingdom. No, it wasn't Bound, it was Parcelite Kingdom, excuse me. And she's good at magic and with a sword, despite only using a staff in the original. But hey, it worked for her. She was basically the mage of the party, and she fulfilled her role pretty well. Um, she and Maxim married about at the very halfway point of the game, and they stay together throughout the entire game. They even have a kid together. Spoilers, they die at the end. I don't even know why I'm saying spoilers, though, if you're watching this at all. But, she's pretty cool. She's supposed to have blue hair, but she had green hair in the sprite for the original Lufia 2 game. I don't know why they did this, probably because of the palette problem. Actually, I have a pretty good idea why they did it, and I'm going to show this to you on the next character on the list, but let's look at how the remake treated her. Once again, I'm not really all that impressed. They basically turned her into the independent fighter mage type that you've seen in a lot of animes and whatnot. It's not a total butchering of the character, but I really don't care for it. It's definitely not what I was expecting. Yeah, of course, I'm the type of person that doesn't think a mage character looks right if they're not in robes and wielding a staff, so I'm not really the best one to ask. But it's an okay change. I can deal with this, because at least for the most part, she wasn't butchered like some of these others are. Let's look at the next person on the list. Tia, the childhood friend of Maxim. In the original, she owned a shop in the town that she and Maxim grew up in, and they were good friends. They hung out a lot. She would cook for him, and she had quite a fascination with him, even at an early age. When Maxim went on a journey, she was intent on following with him no matter what he told her, because she was in love with him and couldn't stand to see him suffer, not knowing whether he'd come back alive or not. So she forced her way into his party and stayed with him till the halfway point of the game. She was the first love interest for Maxim, and got jealous when he started having eyes for Salon. But when it finally struck her that he loved Salon and not her, she backed off and left him so that him and Salon could have a good life together, and swore that she would find a man just as good as Maxim. In-game, this never happened, but you can assume it happened one day. Spoilers, when they die at the end, Tia cries, which is odd since she says right before she leaves Maxim for good that she hasn't cried since she was picked on as a child for it. So seeing her cry at the end was pretty darn depressing. It really showed you that she was suffering and she didn't really understand why. But that's what she was like in the original. Let's see how she was treated in the new one. Oh my goodness, how do I describe this? She looks completely different in this game. Not a single bit of what she was like before is in this new one. She no longer knows magic, unless she gets it through a weapon, and even then she sucks at it. She no longer uses a whip, but instead has a box, or a suitcase, as you see here, that has a punching glove in it that will attack enemies when she opens the suitcase up. Are you kidding me? Not only did they had to ruin the way she looks, ruin the way she acts, she doesn't even act nice and jealous in this game. No, she acts more like a dunce, and it's very clumsy. If you've seen animes like Fullmetal Alchemist and Naruto, then this kind of thing you should be very familiar with. And I hate the fact that they turned Tia into this type of character. It was a total butchering of her character, and I hate them for it. What makes it even worse is she doesn't leave you in this game like she did before. After Maxim and Salon marries, she sticks around to help them out when they have to resume their journey after getting married. which is kind of stupid for a lot of reasons. The original reason she leaves, excuse me, Maxim and Salon is so that she can get over Maxim. But since she sticks around with Maxim in the new one, it's almost like she'll never get over him because she's always around him. So this really makes little sense for her to actually do this. And yes, I know, they only did it so you wouldn't lose her as a party member, but it was a stupid reason. I mean, her reasons for sticking around were, just to stick around. There was no plot reason for her to actually do this, and it comes off as just being very lazy writing. But for better or for worse, you're stuck with her, so you may as well make use of her. That's character number 3. Now let's talk about the really bad changes. Okay, this is Guy. After Tia joins you, you go to a town where a warrior named Guy is training with a couple of soldiers. He automatically sees that Maxim is a warrior and immediately tries to train with him to see his power without even asking him. But before he can do so, monsters invade and steals his sister, and he teams up with Maxim and Salon to rescue her. Now, this guy who's ruling the monsters, Camus, is a total pushover, and you can easily take him out. But he claims that a being or beings stronger than himself will come and take over the world. And that's when you first hear about the Sinistrals. And Guy joins you on your team to help fight these super beings off and save the world. And just by looking at him, you know he's a force to be reckoned with. The heavy armor, the powerful lance, axe, whatever it's supposed to be he's holding. His sprite isn't as awesome looking, but it really does show that he's a strong warrior. Unfortunately, look what we got in the new one. You're kidding, right? No, I'm sorry. This does not work. There's a difference between looking like this and looking like this. It's like it's a totally different person, almost. Except for the hair color, maybe the face, but look at his build. This isn't Samson we're talking about, this is Guy. Come on. He looks way too buff to be Guy in this game. Not only that, but he is so slow in this game. Like, if you look at him in the original, sure, he is slower agility than Maxim and Salon, but not by all that much. And once he gets to higher levels, you can actually equip it, like accessories and whatnot to fix the agility problem. Don't worry, he's as fast as everyone else. In this, his attacks are so slow that all the agility in the world won't help make him faster. And his stupid weapon. He is so strong he creates an earthquake when he attacks the ground. This is absurd. This is honestly something that bothers me more than anything else. Why? What came into their mind to do this? I can understand maybe wanting to change his character, so you don't have two characters with blue hair, two girls with blue hair and whatnot, even though I still think it's stupid. But with Guy, there's just no excuse. He was strong enough as it is. There have been a couple people that said that Maxim and Guy kind of look too similar in-game. So this is their reason for changing them out. But you could have went about it so differently. You didn't have to turn him into a bulking Samson, Hercules type character. You did not. But anyway, I've already ranted enough about Guy. Let's go to the next one on the list. Artia, or also called Artie. He is an elf that you meet towards the end of the game and helps you out to defeat the super beings once the mage, elf of the village, I can't remember her name, gets kidnapped by one of the Sinistrals called Amon and tries to get the power of the elfin village for himself. But she sacrifices her life in order to keep him from getting it, and instead gives it to you. Sweet. Unfortunately, this also means she dies, and her daughter becomes traumatized by it. Artia says for her not to despair, though, and says to help protect the elfin village. Her role in the new one, Milkia, I think that was her name. She has a much better role in the second one, though I think it was kind of stupid the way she was used. It's not like she was ever meant to be an important character. But that's not the problem. The problem is with RT in this. In the sprite, it looks like he's wielding a sword, and he can, but he's better off with bows, since they attack a group of enemies and not one, as shown in his official art. In the new one, however, he has a gun. I am not kidding. The elven warrior of the elven village uses a gun. This is probably the most dumbest idea I've ever heard of. You can tell that they were just doing this to make Artia look more extreme! But instead, it just came off as being very, very gimmicky. Like, I'm used to there being gimmicks in games, especially with certain characters, but this is the worst I've ever seen. There is no reason for him to be using a gun. And yes, I know some people say it's probably just a bow that is used like a gun, but no, it looks like a gun, it's used like a gun. It is a stupid gun. Oh, man. Artia can use magic as well, but since this is an action RPG and not turn-based like the other one was, his magic is weaker and slower. So, used between Salon, Maxim, and Artia, you're probably going to use Salon for magic since she's the strongest and the fastest at using it. So yeah, Artia's pretty much a waste in this game. Don't ever use him. And then this brings us to the last part member to join you. Well, not the last, but the last one to cover in this. Dekar. Probably my favorite. He was strong, he was fast, he was very witty with some of his comments. I think most of the wit in Lufia 2 came from this character. He wasn't very smart though, as shown throughout the entire game, where he would say some very stupid things at times. But I think as far as strong and stupid characters go, he's one of the best. You can also tell how awesome he is just from his art alone, and his sprite. You can tell just from looking at this that you have a very powerful prime member on your team. But in the remake, I have no words for how stupid this is. I complain about Guy, but look at this guy. I mean, just look at him. He looks so stupid. He has pink hair. He has a fancy coat. He's not using a weapon at all in this picture. Which is ironic, since instead of using the Blastmaster, which he was famous for in the original, his move is now called Exploding Fist. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have changed from a very powerful, witty weapon wielder to a very idiotic, pimp-looking, coat-wearing fist attacker. Yeah, I'm not even going to use the fisting jokes. It's not necessary here. He's stupid enough as it is. Natsume, how could you do this? I mean, did you respect any of these characters in the original? How could you do this to them? It's not right. He's actually taken the role of Mimic in this game, where he can equip any weapon in the game and use them just like the other characters would. The bad thing about this is there's nothing that sets him apart except for his Exploding Fist move, which in itself isn't all that great, since it has a slow charge and it does crappy damage. It can knock down foes, but I've never found that to be really helpful. Okay. So, what did best or worst of all the new characters. I'll do old versus new here, kind of. My favorite would probably have to be Dekark, followed closely by Guy. All the characters in the original were just awesome, but they just weren't used very much. You did also get Lexus the Inventor on your team, but he's not on your team at all in the second one, so that's why I'm leaving him out. He was just a stock magician for a couple of dungeons anyway, so it wasn't that important. Best or worst in the new one? This one's kind of hard, actually, since I have no real respect for any of them. But if I was to pick one, it would probably be Salon. She was probably the most useful in the game, and was very useful at defeating enemy groups. For bosses, Maxim was better, but not by a whole lot. You could stick with Salon through the entire game, and as soon as you got her, and you'd pretty much be set. There were times when you couldn't use her or use Maxim, but if you could, then just use those two. That's all you ever need. See, how long have I been recording here? Oh, only 20 minutes. Well, that's not too bad. I was thinking I was ranting for a lot longer than that. But this is just part one. Next time, I will hunt down the comparison picture for the Sinistrals, and we'll show you just how much they butchered them. Till next time, everyone, so